Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about interviews and effectiveness. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, how effective do you think software engineering interviews are in determining how good the candidate will turn out to be? Horrendously difficult to say. I would say this. The software interview, depending on how you do it, is very good at figuring out how good a person is at coding itself, but it is impossible to figure out how effective they will be once they're in the team. That is basically impossible. Let me explain that a little bit to you. So, I have worked for some time now with interviewing, and I work with recruiters and in-house people like managers, etc., because I'm one of those guys who have the responsibility of reviewing all the CVs, reviewing all the candidates, and like looking at their code test and talking to them, like scheduling like a face-to-face type of thing that we're doing the video conference things, and doing like just a 1 hour discussion with them about different topics related to programming in general, so that I can figure out sort of what level they are. And the thing that I like about the approach that we have is usually that I make that very clear to the candidates immediately, because they're of course very nervous, and I say there's no pass fail here. We're going to talk about some basic questions about things in technology, and I would like to hear your thoughts on these things. They are very open questions, and I just want to hear how you think about them. There is no pass fail, and the company that I work for is big enough that it's yeah, I mean, they hire everything. They hire all kinds of people, and it's really just about figuring out where are you on the scale. So the only thing that some people are nervous about, of course, is oh shit, if they're on the junior slope, they're concerned that they are too inexperienced and so forth and so forth. And then you of course have these sorts of people who have, I mean, it was just hilarious. The other day we had a candidate who, he had been working for 2 years and managed to, in his previous role, gotten the responsibility of being a team lead. And apparently they made him an offer for a junior level position, and he was very surprised and almost a little bit offended that we considered him to be a junior software developer, because he had had his own team. And I just sat there, and my manager, who has been doing this for 15 years, went like, yeah, I know. It's like he didn't seem to understand that you can be you can be the CTO of a one-person company and still not know the first thing about how to run things in a large corporation, where like with hundreds of people in like a large distributed system. I mean, he could barely understand the basics of the technical questions that we asked him, yet somehow he considers himself to be a senior. And so when it comes to interviews, guys, you have to understand that it really comes down to how they're structured. Now, when I do an interview, it might be different from how, say, a company that you interview for is doing it. Some companies have a really shitty process where and this is sort of why IT looks the way it does. You have a lot of incompetent people in IT, a lot of them. And it's usually because a lot of companies don't know how to hire a software developer. I'd like to think that I do. And even with the fact that even though I feel like I do, I accept and I acknowledge one single thing, one specific thing that I know that I will never be able, ever, to test for. Because the only way you can figure that out is through empirical evidence, and that is how effective are they going to be at the job. So I can test how good you are at solving coding challenges. I can test how well you know the landscape and your tools and what your experience level is. I can do both of these things very easily. I give you a test that has enough of a sample size. It's sort of like, it's almost like a sample size for like a doctor or something like that. I just need to get enough of a sample to be able to see, okay, these are the telltales of a junior, senior, etc., so that I can see that the coding here is at a level that is acceptable, or like it's decent enough. And then I need to talk to the person, Ask them a few key questions about different things in technology and how they do things, like, how do they do testing, what is this piece of technology, how do you do this sort of thing, and what is this, etc., etc., do you know about these things? And then just hear them talk, because I can hear, due to the fact that I know this stuff fairly well, if they know it. And it's that simple. Now I know that this is a person who knows something about programming. But the thing that I don't know is, if I put you in this team and I start giving you stories, are you going to be able to figure out how to do that? Are you going to read the documentation? Or are you going to bother your coworkers every 5 minutes because you are incapable of doing anything by yourself? Or are you going to be a problem socially because you don't want to play nice with the other kids in the team? Or are you going to stop and do nothing when someone, I don't know, doesn't spoon feed you the answer to everything? Are you going to ask me to solve every problem for you because you're forced to do something you're not super happy about doing, and then you cause a lot of issues because for some reason I have this amazing ability where I can send a message to another team asking them for advice on how to work with one of their systems, and you do not, because it's intimidating to talk to other human beings, or that it's annoying that you have to do that. These things I have no way of knowing. There's no way. And it's actually funny, I work in a part of the world where we have very strong labor laws in some parts of in my country. And one of the things that I've always found hilarious was that, at least from the hiring perspective, that some companies don't actually make sure that they have some agreement in place where you can try the candidate out for a while. There are cases where you can do that, but some don't, which means that as soon as you get the person in, you're stuck with them, regardless of if they can do it or not, which is idiotic, because this is something that will never be possible to test ahead of time. You have to test them out. And if they can't do this, oh, congratulations! You just you now have someone who cannot actually do the job. Because as I like to say, there's a big difference between being technically smart enough and being able to produce result. And that is the difference between academics, or people. I'm not saying academics per se, but I'm saying people who know facts, and people who are truly intelligent and can actually solve problems and apply the things that they have learned in theory. And that no one is good at figuring out when it comes to the interviewing process. I promise you that. There is no solution to that problem. So what I want you to take away from this is that the software engineering interview process is, depending on how it works, fairly good at figuring out roughly the sort of skill level that you might find a person at, like sort of the range of, this is like someone who doesn't know any coding, this is someone who's pretty good at it, something like that. And it's also fairly good, depending on how you do it, once again, at figuring out roughly what tools have they been using, do they actually know what they're talking about, etc., etc. So the technology stuff I feel pretty good about in general, but being able to actually do the work, being able to apply the knowledge that they have, etc., etc., being able to solve problems, doing the thing that matters, nope. It is horrendously bad at that. But then again, I would say that that is a problem that is in every single interviewing process. It's very difficult to figure out how a person will react under real circumstances, and that is why I think it's so important to have these sorts of trial periods or evaluation periods where you sort of see how the candidate does. And then of course you need to support the candidate so that they learn, but at the same time it's very difficult to maintain a lucrative business, or to not even just like for large companies, even for small companies, it doesn't matter. A company sometimes it's kind of weird to create a situation where you're sort of stuck with this individual, and you're basically crippling your company and asking the hiring process to be so well organized, or the training process so well organized, that regardless of circumstances you're supposed to make a productive team player out of this candidate. And the reality is that that's not possible. That's like saying that we're going to solve the weight problem or climate change by just asking people to really think about it. It's been proven 100 times over that that doesn't work. Have a great day.